Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Megan Stewart. I'm a Client Director at Vantage Performance and I'll be your moderator for today. Today we're presenting, does your sales team have the critical skill set needed in the current environment? Our host today again will be Kevin Higgins with our guest, Michael Lang, who's the founder of SG Partners. So before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. We'll have 30 minutes of content to get through today, and we'll then have up to 15 minutes for question time. Just a reminder for those who haven't been on a webinar before as to where the question and answer module is in Zoom. It's on the bottom of your screen there. You can ask a question at any time during the presentation, and if we get a chance, we'll answer it live. Otherwise, we'll leave it till question time at the end and answer all the questions then. So I will hand over to Kevin Higgins, our host. So Kevin is the Executive Director of our Queensland office at Vantage Performance. Thanks, Kev.
All right, thank you very much, Megan, and welcome to another edition of the Vantage Resilience series. So does your sales team have the critical skill set needed in the current environment? Well, in that infographic you see in front of us, sales team effectiveness, we think, is one of the 8 critical pillars for highly resilient business. So today we're going to be focusing on the sales side of things, and we're actually going to be joined by Michael Lang from SG Partners, who founded SG Partners in 2008 and is basically in business to improve the results of from leadership and sales team efforts and generating more revenue, increasing margins, growing market share, and creating more loyal clients at the end of the day. Michael's got 27 years experience in sales and marketing, and looking forward to hearing his insights on the critical skill sets needed in this current environment. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Kevin. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so as tradition has it, we're going to start off with a poll to get us started. So do you or your client, did they have the right set of skills within your sales team? So if you're an advisor or you're a banker, you could either think about your own team or pick your most valued customer. If you're an accountant, pick your most valued customer and ask the question, do you think your client has the right set of sales skills within their team? So it's a yes, no, or not sure answer. We'll give another few seconds on that.
Just while we're waiting, Kevin, just like to shout out to a couple of people I know that are attending, Peter and Jim and Adrian. Always good to see some friendly people on the webinar.
Yeah. Excellent, well attended. All right.
Great. So we've got about 60% of you that have voted so far. So I think we'll end the polling there. We'll just share those results to the screen as well. And yeah, hand back over to you guys to talk to the results.
Not sure if we have the best. That's a pretty good response, actually.
Yeah. I think, probably COVID-19's probably may have shone a spotlight on sales team. So, but I guess COVID's also played a lot with kind of motivation and everyone's motivation during this period. So what do you think, Michael, is the right mindset to engage with prospects in this COVID-19 environment?
Part of the challenge is the psychology that's going on in this environment. So there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of, from a customer land perspective, should I buy now? Should I delay it? Do I really need this? And therefore, you've also got a salesperson that has got the KPIs of generating sales. So we've got a lot of psychology at play here. So the first challenge is the belief that there is business out there to be had. If you have a salesperson that has a mindset to say, you know what, they're just not going to answer the phone, they're just not going to buy, then they're not going to be really effective at, one, picking up the phone, to create meetings, video call meetings, and two, actually engage with the hope that something will come out of it. So you've got to have an abundance mindset, hence why we've got a bunny rabbit there with lots of carrots there. You know, that's the first thing. The second thing is that when a lot of salespeople engage with other people, they generally engage from their own perspective. And what we have found pre-COVID and even now, it's been accentuated, that because they're under pressure, they just want to pick up the phone and just tell the prospect how they can help them, their features and benefits and so forth. They're not exactly understanding the other perspective of the person they're ringing. So, you know, they could be on the island saying, hey, great, this is the way I'm going to get off. And the prospects on the boat say, hey, this is a great way to get off. They're not actually exploring it, just blurting it because of psychology that's going on. And another aspect is this picture that's coming up is taken from a Brené Brown YouTube video, which is a great one. Check it out on empathy and sympathy, that there's a distinction between empathy and sympathy. So a lot of salespeople in this environment would sympathize with the prospect's put-offs, with the prospect's anxieties and so forth. And when we sympathize, we can't move forward. So empathy is the way to go. The challenge is there's two types of empathy. There's good empathy and there's bad empathy. There's good empathy in listening and understanding it and demonstrating you care. Bad empathy is buying into the put-offs that the prospect might be giving you. So there are three typical areas of mindset that we see have been occurring and heightened during this interesting times that we're in, Kevin.
Yeah, excellent. So during these times, you would need a real, critical skill set. So what do you think from a sales perspective, what are those skill sets that people need in this environment from a sales perspective?
So because we're part of a group that analyzes over 2 million data sets, we're able to see exactly what skill sets and mindsets are required from a sales perspective. So pre-COVID, there was a lot of average salespeople out there, a lot of them. And so they really don't have the desire or the commitment to sell. They'll take the money for the role, but they really don't have what it takes. And commitment is doing the hard yards, pushing, making that extra phone call. And then when we look at skill sets, well, you've got to be able to hunt in this environment, because it's just activities. You've got to have the activities and then the effectiveness to get the outcomes. So you've got to be able to hunt. The other skill set that's critical is be able to be consultative selling. If you're still stuck in the transactional selling, you're no different than anyone else that's ringing the same prospect. In fact, I was talking to someone in the UK who has up to 2 million data sets on sales conversations recordings. And they were saying they've seen a distinct difference between pre-COVID and COVID. A lot, and they pick up keywords used by both the salesperson and the prospect. And there's been a change in linguistics from the prospects, a lot more cost cutting, need to delay, need to put it on hold. So salespeople are hearing this a lot. And average salespeople pre-COVID are going to struggle even more during COVID, because they just don't have the skill sets to engage with those anxieties from the prospect. So we need to hunt even more. We need to be active. We need to understand how to be truly consultative, to pre-frame the objections we're going to get. We need to also understand how to be value sellers, because we're going to get a lot of clients that want to bring down the cost of their business. So whatever we're selling to them, they're going to be asking for discounts. And one way to get out of business is just keep discounting. So there's some of the critical things that we focus on in this interesting times.
Yeah, I think I picked up there on value selling, actually. It kind of plays a little bit into discovering your why. So another pillar for highly resilient businesses is knowing your why and having that why workshop, because we've worked with a number of turnaround clients in the past where they've been competing on price, but as soon as they discover their why, why do you get out of bed in the morning? People buy on emotion. They don't
Correct.
buy you or how you do it. They buy why you do what you do. And that's actually a workshop that we do, but that's all of a sudden when you discover your why, that all feeds into the collateral. It goes into your marketing spiel, and every sales guy can be armed with their elevator statement, whatever it is. So that's interesting. Just
so true. So the distinction there, Kevin, is if you're in an abundance mindset, you will be willing to walk away. If you're in a scarcity mindset, you want to grab everything that comes your way, and therefore you're more likely to discount just to get the sale.
Yep.
But if you're in abundance and you've got a full pipeline, then you should be willing to say, actually, no, this is my value set, this is my why, this is my proposition. And if you're not understanding it, then I suck at engaging with you. But secondly, there's some prospective clients out there that just don't want to buy a value set, and that's okay. And it's the ability to walk away. And therefore, hunting is such a critical skill set, because then you've got to dial again and again and again. Not everyone's going to buy from you.
Yeah, no, interesting. Now, I guess a lot of organizations are going to be looking at their sales team at the moment, either maybe as a restructuring initiative, or, as I say, COVID's just put the spotlight on that. It always is. As soon as there's a downturn in the economy, you always look at the sales team. But if you were to restructure the sales team, what would you consider to maximize the revenue aspect of it, the machines, and reduce costs of sales post-COVID? Like, how would you fix the sales club?
So I started the company in the GFC, so I've seen some of what's going on already. There's some nuances here. Typically, what a business leader will do is say, what's my cost of the salesperson? Who's the most expensive salesperson? And then they'll say, what's the revenue they've brought in? And those two factors, they'll make decisions on who should be on the team and who shouldn't be on the team. Our perspective is we've got access to a nice little tool set to say, you know what, what's done in the past won't work going forward. So an external salesperson could really suck in this environment because they can't meet face-to-face, body-to-body. So they've got to use the phone more, and they've got to use video conferencing. And we know some great external salespeople that are really struggling in this environment. So we can't go on the past. So yes, what we take into consideration is the cost of sales. But we say, look, wouldn't it be great if you actually knew what they could do? So let's look at the skill sets. So we evaluate sales teams. We look at the skill sets. And from the skill sets, we say they could do this. And then we look at their pipeline. So we look at a lot of metrics rather than just those two metrics. And what you may find is an inside salesperson could be just as effective as an external salesperson who you generally pay more. So there's a great opportunity to say, maybe I need to get more from less. Possibly I could move some people on, and possibly I could change some people in their roles and change expectations. So we look at, can they work effectively remotely? Are they self-starters? Do they work independently? Do they have the critical sales skills, like being a value seller, being a qualifier, being a hunter? And how effective are they in filling the pipeline and moving the pipeline through? So there's some of the things that we look at. And one of the other things is high resistance. And are they rejection proof? Because here's the thing. Everyone's going to be calling on the phone now the exact same prospect. They're going to be hit with all these calls. And if you can't differentiate yourself, that's why consultative selling is so critical. If you can't differentiate yourself, you're no better than the last person that called. And so the question is, will they pick up your call again? Probably not. So this is a great opportunity to as Jim Collins says, good to great, face the brutal facts. Do a deep dive on your team, not only for what you need now, but what you're going to need in the next 6 months. And if you want to train them, then you'll have a deeper understanding of where you need to put your time and effort to get your bang for your bucks.
I guess COVID-19, that's kind of put a spanner in the works as far as a lot of business development and salespeople. So you like to be face-to-face with someone when you're having a conversation. So that's been a big challenge. But can a sales team engage effectively through video conferencing?
Of course they can. Yeah, look, we're not getting the human to human. We've got to use what we've got. And here we are on video conferencing. Zoom's made a lot of money from this, and Microsoft has missed out, latecomers. We've got to use everything that's possible. So the beautiful thing about video conferencing is we can see the people now. But we've also got to understand we've got a limited view. We've only got that view now. So we need to be even more effective about reading facial language. And we need to be more effective about being effective in the short time span that we have. So it just means they need to upskill themselves. They need to be very conscious about their linguistics they use. They need to be very conscious about planning that call and the emotional engagement throughout that call. The exciting thing about video conferencing is many years ago, probably 3 years ago, they did a survey and they found, this is after GFC, that 5.4 people were involved in the decision-making process. 5.4, so 5 and a short person. Now, 5.4 people have their own agendas. So if 5.4 people get in a room and they can't agree upon the move forward, they will agree upon one thing: do nothing different. So pre-COVID, when we had face-to-face engagements, we had to go to each individual, and sometimes they weren't available. In video conferencing, it's easier now to get the 5.4 in on one video conferencing. So you can essentially shorten the sales cycle by getting everyone involved in that one conversation. And yes, you have to be even more effective at engaging with those people. But that's the beauty. That's the opportunity we have in front of us.
Yeah.
And you don't have to get in a plane and travel a couple of hours for a 1 hour meeting. I saw a stat just yesterday from the Fortune 500 CEOs, and they believe that in the future, 50% of their travel budget will be cut. Why? Because they've made the decision that COVID has given them the opportunity to raise the opportunities through video conferencing, and they're going to continue it. So salespeople who love traveling, love to get face-to-face, guess what? Your companies are going to restrict you. So there's no choice in it. Just get on the bandwagon and learn to be truly effective with video conferencing.
Yeah, and I guess it also, sales leaders who are managing that sales team as such, they're going to have to manage in a remote environment as well. So is that presumably they're going to have to upskill to make sure that they can get the most out of sales teams. Can they manage remotely? Is that?
Well, pre-COVID, from 2 million data sets on sales teams, only 10% of sales managers should be in the sales management role. 10%. So that's pre-COVID, right? So sales managers generally suck at their role. They're either a salesperson in sales management clothing, so they prefer to sell, or they're a sales manager that just haven't been trained, have not been trained on sales management. Now we've got COVID, which has heightened their weaknesses. So I know sales managers that are struggling video conferencing themselves. I know sales managers that don't engage on LinkedIn. So if they don't engage, they won't have the expectation of their salespeople. So even more important now is the need to coach our salespeople. Yeah. And that's one huge weakness in sales leaders. So yes, sales leaders need to step up, and they need to get into a cadence, a rhythm of engaging with their team. So here in our company during the interesting times we had, we adopted a morning huddle and an afternoon huddle. And now that my team are all back in the office, we're still keeping our morning huddle going. And that's one of the things I learned from the Rockefeller Habits Vern Harnish. And it never really came home till this interesting time, where it's so important to reach out to your salespeople every day and just share about what's going on in the company. Keep that sales culture alive and find out what they've got planned and get everyone to share so they're ready to go. And yes, in the afternoon, if you have to do another one, so important now for sales leaders to be even more engaged with their sales team. And those that don't, well, the salespeople say, well, I'm not feeling the love. So they'll go look for where they can get more love. So we've been doing some recruitment roles in sales, and some great salespeople have stepped forward because they want to feel the love. They want to feel included. Mm. So if you as a sales manager don't get your sales team to feel that way, they'll find somewhere else to go.
Yeah, it's interesting. I attended a Jack Daly conference. Jack Daly, as you know, is one of the sales gurus in the US, and he was he was reiterating that you need to be an effective sales manager is effectively a coach. You don't need the technical sales skills as such. You need to be able to, coach your team to perform at the end of the day. It's a really interesting take.
And coaching is not an easy skill set. I've been doing this for 11 years. And most of the time, the first question I ask any leader is, what's the difference between mentoring and coaching? And very few of them get it right. So there's a skill set that we could all learn to be even more effective at, because truly that's the skill set that's going to create sustainable difference, transformation.
Excellent. Well, we might break for another poll question just to see if people are still awake out there. So this one is, what's the biggest impact on your sales pipeline at the moment? So it'll either be deals are taking longer to close, there's not enough deals in the pipeline, they're not flowing through the pipeline, or all of the above?
I've got it. I'm thinking I know what the answer should be, so let's see what they say. One of the webinars I did a couple of months ago, this was in the mining sector. Most of the participants said, you know what, our pipeline is fairly cool for the next 3 months, because they had a lot of work in progress. And then they could foresee that, say, August and September, they were going to be in trouble.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the benefit of a sales pipeline dashboard, really, at the end of the day.
Well, there's another thing. It still astounds me the number of companies that don't have CRMs in place. Yeah. And I'm talking about these companies have been going for quite a while. And I've got a client at the moment that we're putting a CRM in place because they just don't understand what the forecast is for the next 3 months.
You know, just before I cut to Megan, but that plays in, we've got a Vantage Resilience Index or assessment tool that we use. And one of there's 50 questions, but one of them is, do you have a sales dashboard, as in sales pipeline dashboard? And the second one is, do you know your conversion rate? And do you track conversion rate? So those are the kind of the two critical ones. If you're on top of that, then you assume that you've got a whole other back system in place to tell you that.
Correct. So yeah, there's some of the metrics I look at. Is, what's your conversion of your win-loss ratio? What's the pipeline looking like as far as the next 3 months? And what metrics are you tracking for the effectiveness of your people?
Yeah, excellent.
So we'll just close that poll now. So the majority of you have responded. I think, not surprisingly, we've got half of you answering all of the above. Yes. With the second in line being deals taking longer to close. So I'll just share those results to your screen and leave it with you guys.
I'd expect that.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Michael.
So the reason why deals taking longer to close is because of that anxiety and because of 5.4 people involved in the decision making. So there's a lot of things that are going on in the prospect land that typically salespeople don't find out enough about because they're not asking questions, they're not digging deeper. And all of the above, one of the most consistently frustrating things leaders have is they apply this fudge factor to their forecast. And it's not just COVID, it's pre-COVID as well. It's the ability to have certainty around what's going in the pipeline and it's actually being pulled through. Because what's happening right at the moment is salespeople are putting a lot of things in the pipeline because it makes them feel good and it shows to the sales managers they're busy. But effectively it just gets stuck there. It's called pipeline bloat because they're not real, because they're not qualifying. They're qualifying as much as they can in rather than qualifying out.
Yeah, interesting. And what we're seeing also, just as a result of COVID, like everything's come to a halt. So deals are taking longer, or there's not enough deals in the pipeline, or pipeline's not flowing. And this is across many sectors. But what are the 2 or 3 things that we should be doing now to start filling the pipeline?
Well, actually, the first thing before filling the pipeline is get courageous. Get courageous and strip your pipeline. So face the brutal facts. As long as we as leaders believe that the pipeline is full, then we might not do as much as we should be doing. So strip it, get courageous, create a real in-depth qualifying criteria and lay that across all the opportunities. And you'll get salespeople say, oh no, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. If it ain't happened now, over a period of time, then it's not going to happen. And as long as they keep holding onto it, they won't go finding others. So to fill the pipeline, activities. We've got to reach out to people. And when we reach out to people, let's make sure we're reaching out to the right people. So again, one of the criteria that we help people understand to be truly effective in growing their revenue and market share is focus on the ideal client. And if a non-ideal client comes around, then you have some rigor to put against that. So reach out to more ideal clients and use everything at your disposal. That's LinkedIn, phone calling, texting, referrals. A number of times I've said to a number of clients is, why don't you go back to your existing clients and ask, do they know someone? And what about in the last year of people that you engaged with that didn't buy from you? Maybe they didn't solve their problem. So go back to them. There's so many opportunities to engage with to create new opportunities. So that's the first thing I would do to fill the pipeline. Go to existing clients and ask for referrals, cross-sell and upsell them as well, and go to past prospects that didn't buy from you. I mean, you did a proposal, so there's some content there already to deal with. Just explore further.
Yeah, excellent. And once we get the proposal in front of the prospect, how do we assist that prospect in making decisions sooner rather than later? So how do we kind of build up that healthy pipeline of prospects? It's not a big one, but
Okay, so human beings generally will like to bitch and moan about a problem they've got until it becomes so painful that they will then decide to shift and do something different. So the challenge is when we show up and throw up as salespeople, that's why I've got that image there, we don't take in consideration of engaging with the emotional context of the commitment to change. So it's counterintuitive, but we actually have to create an uncomfortable environment when we're talking to the prospect. And most salespeople are uncomfortable with making their prospects uncomfortable. But only through uncomfortability do we actually decide to change. So that's why truly consultative selling engagement is required. Those that are still transactional, show up and throw up, they just want to tell how great their products are, give them the spiel, and then hope that something sticks, or get an opportunity to send a quote or a brochure. Hey, I've had a great call. They will not cut it in this environment. And what will happen is they'll send the proposal, and then they'll hear crickets, or they'll be ghosted. They'll call, they email and the text, and the prospect won't get back to them. Why? Because the prospect actually wasn't interested. The easiest way to get rid of a salesperson when you're a prospect, and the nicest way, is ask them to do a proposal or a quote. They can't wait to get off the phone and do that. That's the easiest way, right? Rather than say, no, I'm not interested. So what we need to do is we need to talk about the elephant in the room. We need to talk about some things that they may be thinking about. And average salespeople struggle asking questions like, look, out of interest, why do you need it now? Why didn't you solve this problem a year ago? Why now? Because they're fearful of what the response will be. The average salesperson will not ask questions to say, look, do you have the mandate to move forward? Because sometimes we're only engaging with an influencer and not a decision maker. And if we're doing a proposal to an influencer, then they have to upsell it. And they could suck at selling the proposition because they get questions from the decision maker that they can't answer. So in this environment, we need to get more people involved in the conversation and then do the proposal. Yeah. Once you do the proposal, psychology-wise, it's in your pipeline, you're really focused on it, and you follow up, and you get frustrated. And guess what happens when you finally engage? They feel your frustration. So I believe do more work before the proposal stage, more engagement, you'll have a better success rate when you finally give the proposal.
Yeah, excellent. Really good advice and tips there. We're at the kind of halfway mark. I might just check in with Megan, our moderator, to see if there's any questions.
Great, thanks Kev, and thanks Michael. So we've got a question that came in during the session, so we'll start with that one, but I encourage you all to jump down to your question and answer module at the bottom of your screen and throw some questions in there. But to start with, I mean, you've touched on this and partly answered it talking about the pipeline side of things, but the question is, since the current environment's still in progress and is yet to play out fully, is it okay for salespeople to temporarily go into a sort of retention phase and not focus solely on sales, rather build up some real meaningful connections and understand their customers' needs and be ready for when some normality returns?
Certainly. You cannot force someone to buy, right? So we have to create an environment for them to choose and select us. The challenge I have in responding to that is, you have to make it a strategy. Don't make it an and/or. So I know one client, I suggest, look, call your best clients right now and just learn more about them. And when we say learn more about them, learn more about their current challenges and how they see that they'll want to solve them in what sort of time frame. You know, I have found when I most of the things that I do for companies, they just don't have a budget sitting there. They actually find it because they need to solve the problem. And most of the great opportunities that our clients and your clients have, they've actually created from nothing. There was a person many years ago that did a study, and they said there's 3% of the population in your marketplace that have a problem, know the solution, just need to find someone to partner with. 6% have a problem, have no idea about the solution. And 91% don't have a problem. So only by having conversations will we be able to see what the 3, 6, and 91% are. The interesting thing though is the 91% don't believe they have a problem until you actually have a dialogue with them and start asking questions. And then they start to see that the symptoms that they've been experiencing can actually be solved by focusing on the causations. And when you focus more on causes, you deliver more value and you get a higher return for that engagement. So to me, reaching out to your existing clients, having great conversations, finding out causes to their symptoms will set you up now and into the future of being able to provide great solutions.
Great. Anything to add on that, Kevin?
Oh, I mean, I'd reiterate that. I mean, it's you know, we're all about solving problems, and sometimes some of the solutions, you know, clients may not have thought about, or they didn't know about those solutions. So that's you know, that makes sense to go on to. I mean, to ask the questions. I mean, that's a critical question to ask, is how can we help? You know, it's you know, and listen. You know, I think advice for salespeople is not to probably talk for 10% of the time and listen for 90% of the time. So you're going to get more, you know, from your prospect. So yeah.
So I was on a call this morning to a US provider of a sales conversation dashboard. So they take the recordings of the sales conversation and they create a dashboard. And so he was presenting to me, the salesperson, and he was showing me one of his dashboards that he was talking around about 59% of the time. And I said, well, you're in pitch mode. And he said, yeah, that's what my manager told me. I said, okay, cool. But here's one of the other distinctions. That tells you how much time you're talking, but does it tell you the speed of your speech? I know you're passionate about your solution. If you speak too quickly, I'm not going to be able to hear all the great words and phrases you need to share with me. And he just looked at me and it just finally resonated with him. He thought, oh, wow. So here we have a tool measuring sales conversations, but it didn't go deep enough. And one of the first things we do in any change management or transformation is, what's that self-awareness piece? If your sales team don't know what they don't know, then they'll continue doing what they do know. So it's critical to have some awareness piece about what they're doing. And therefore the leader needs to have the awareness as well of how to deliver that and how to help them understand how to move through that awareness piece. Change does not happen until we have that self-awareness.
Great. So we've got another question here from Jim. He's asked, how important is social media and digital marketing today? I assume in the lens of selling and sales.
I think it's just another tool set to be used. I love LinkedIn. We do a lot of engagement with LinkedIn, and I have successfully created opportunities from my engagement with LinkedIn. And it disturbs me when I find sales leaders or leaders that do not believe in LinkedIn. It's not a fad anymore, it's there. It disturbs me because they're missing out on a great opportunity in most circumstances for free advertising, free promotion. And I see LinkedIn as a vehicle to set yourself up as a thought leader. As far as other digital media, I have not embraced Twitter. I have not embraced Facebook. During COVID, I got very much enjoyed some of the other social media platforms. And I started to think about, wow, I wonder how businesses will embrace this, right? TikTok's another one. And we're actually seeing TikTok now used in the TV streams as well. So yes, I look at other social medias and thinking, how could you embrace this? How could you leverage this to get to a different audience? And one of the challenges I have is when I think about my prospects, I think, yes, they're definitely on LinkedIn. That's why I invest the time and energy. Do they play on Facebook or Instagram? And you know what? I don't know. You know I don't know because I don't ask. So there's a gap in my ability. And for me to understand what's going to be relevant in the future, I need to start asking that to CEOs and MDs. Do you engage with any social media or any digital platforms? And if so, why? And if you saw some content related to what I do, how would that resonate with you? Again, more questions, Kevin.
Yeah. Very good.
Right.
That's good.
So if some of the people on the line are in a B2C market, definitely you need to engage with social media. If those are in a B2B environment, then it's about picking the right social media and putting your time and effort in, to ensure you maximize the ROI in there.
Great. So we've got another question about industries. So the question is whether there's certain types of salespeople suited to certain industries, or can a good salesperson adapt very quickly to any industry? And then off that, how does that impact selecting the right staff at the outset?
So I've been doing sales team recruitment for 10 years. And when I have a client that has an open mind to say, Michael, the future salesperson does not need to know my industry, my application, my product services. What they need to know is how to be great at selling. I think, wow, imagine what I could do here. Because to me, I'd rather teach someone our product or our application or introduce them to the industry rather than teach them how to sell. It's a longer, harder road to travel. So, but in saying that, if I think someone on here is into caravans, you've got to look at your sales methodology and your sales process and find the right salesperson that has experience in doing that. So if I was selling caravans, I don't know, is it a one call close? Does it take 3 calls? That's the type of salesperson I'm looking at. Do they have to have sold caravans before? No. Do they have to have been in the travel industry? No. What they need to have is certain skill sets in selling, consultative selling, because it is a luxury buy from my model world. So therefore, you need to be a consultative approach. And because it is a high value purchase, there's a lot of emotions that are going on. Again, we need to be consultative in how we approach that. So a transactional salesperson won't be able to be effective in that role. If you sell a transactional item, then yes, get someone that's used to closing transactionally as compared to someone that's used to selling in a complex environment. They won't be able to handle it. So yeah, there's distinct aspects, but I first and foremost look at what's their baseline of skill sets when it comes to selling, what's their DNA when it comes to selling, and what's their mindset. Get that right, then we look at the other aspects.
Great. All right, well, that's all I think we have time for today in terms of questions. So I'll just hand back to Kevin to close out the webinar. But yeah, thanks very much for anyone who asked questions, and thanks very much for those great answers, Michael.
And thanks,
Kevin?
Peter, for your comment. Appreciate it, Peter.
Great. Well, that's thank you, Megan, for moderating today, and special thanks, obviously, to Michael Lang for giving us some great insights today. So really appreciate you being here, Michael.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We've got a couple of webinars coming up over the next month. So we're doing one in a couple of weeks. And that's, we've got Michael Fingland from Vantage Performance in Macare, formerly from our Sydney office, going to be talking about safe harbour and liquidity. So that's going to be very relevant. There's a couple of articles that have been written recently by Macare, and with insolvent trading relief coming to an end in September, and the liquidity crunch that'll come as a result of the government spending coming to an end, that's going to create some, I guess, some new issues to deal with for companies. So we're recommending that people look at safe harbour now to prepare themselves for September. So there's going to be a good Q&A on that on the 1st of July. And then mid-July, we're going to be talking about mental health and COVID's impact on mental well-being, the symptoms, and what some of the coping strategies are for that. So we shall end. If there's any further questions, feel free to contact us directly at Vantage Performance. We'll send a link out to everyone who attended today. Thanks again for joining us, and we shall see you next time. Goodbye.
Thank you.